Hello everybody and welcome back to the English Shooting live stream. Thank you very much for joining and for some of you that patiently waited for the stream to start. Of course, anybody that is new, if this is the first time watching it live or you're watching it back and this is the first video you're seeing on this channel, welcome. Thanks again for stopping in and checking it out. This is, if you're watching it live, it's interactive. If you're watching this recorded, obviously you can't, but there is a comment section that you can still use. But get involved. Let me know what you think of the topics that we're going to be talking about this evening. If you are watching it live, then please post questions, any topics that you want to know a little bit more about, or if there's any help that you need either getting into the sport, getting your certificates, so on and so forth. We are all about getting people into the sport and hopefully making it as clear and easy for people to get into the sport as possible. So I've always got time for that. There's been a few things this week, obviously big in general politics and general news is of course the Conservative leadership battle or contest or whatever you want to call it. And I was going to talk about this last week, but actually we got so into the other topics that I sort of bumped it to this week. Politics and shooting sort of go hand in hand, and the Prime Minister, while I'm not the outright authority in terms of how laws are passed and what is passed, they do obviously have quite a big effect. So it is quite important for the shooting community about who is Prime Minister and who ends up effectively steering the country and steering where shooting sports and firearms ownership here in the UK could go. So we're going to take a little bit of time to go through both candidates and whether or not they are pro, maybe anti-gun, and who's potentially better. A little bit of a spoiler, I think it's looking promising. We've got a few other bits as well. There's been a mental health leaflet put out actually from, I think it's the Scottish Police, giving guidance to firearms owners and certificate holders of what to do if they find themselves in periods of sort of low mental health, and whether they are concerned about themselves or other people have concerns about certificate holders. And it's sort of pitched about debunking some of the myths. I'm not so sure really. The same old problems still lie when it comes to certificate holders and guns, but it is a very important issue and something that does get asked quite a lot about either previous or current mental health issues and how that affects your certificate. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Northern Ireland isn't having a particularly good time at the moment, the police declaring a critical incident within the firearms licensing team, basically because of the massive backlog and the ability for them to do their job, which could be affecting public safety. Because obviously firearms certificates and firearms licensing is all about public safety. If they're not able to do their job, then there's some level of risk there to the public. Also going to talk a little bit about Gun Trader. Some keen-eyed amongst you, maybe if you follow the Instagram, yes, English Shooting does have an Instagram. I don't post on there and as nearly as much as I should, but I'm trying to make more of an effort on there. Might have seen a few photos go out there of a recent day where myself and Connors visited the Gun Trader HQ. So I wanted to talk a little bit about where the company seems to be heading and some of the changes that's happened there. Of course, Gun Trader is very well known for a little data leak. Was it last year or the year before? Obviously, we'll go over that again for anybody that needs a refresher. And there's a big match this weekend, an IPSC Level 3 practical shotgun match up at Northcote's Butts, just outside Grimsby. And today the stage diagrams were put out, so I was just going to have a little flick through because it looks absolutely incredible. The team that runs this Coats of Irons at Northcote's Butts, it's been on other ranges as well, but it's the Coats of Irons is a pretty staple match in the year. And the team there just go above and beyond on their stage building and sort of stage design, and it's going to look like a really fun match to shoot. So give a little bit of sneak peek about that. I think it's a little too late if you want to get registered. I think it's actually completely sold out. Again, a very popular match, very well run. Even if maybe last year there was a little bit of controversy on the slug stages that has given Connor's PTSD as he was ROing them, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But more importantly, again, get involved, have your voice heard, use the chat, use the comment section, but also don't forget to like. It is free. If you're watching and you're not liking, then why are you watching? Unless, of course, you work for any of the various government agencies that are watching this stream, or even firearms licensing departments. But again, even if you are from one of those departments, please, hit the like button. I won't hold it against you, honest. And if this is the first time, or you've been watching the channel for a while and you're not already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. I want to give a slight little bit of an interjection before we get on to the main topic for this evening, which is just a general thank you to all you guys, everybody that watches the channel, that supports the channel in your own different way, whether you watch the videos, like the videos, message, share stuff on Facebook, whatever. If you in some way support the channel, just thank you. I know the past few weeks, or even like couple of months, has been very desolate in content, and I actually came very, very close to not doing the live stream tonight because not feeling particularly well. It's all self-inflicted, so don't have any sympathy. And just before I actually put the stream out, scheduled it, there are just so many people messaging going, oh, is there a stream? And this happens every single time that there isn't a stream. But, in the half an hour run up to it, just get messages and comments like, is there a stream tonight? What's going on, and this, that, and the other. And I was like, it's a different thing when I'm like away for a match or traveling or whatever, and I physically can't do the stream. But yeah, calling off a live stream just because I maybe partied a little too hard last night, I don't think is acceptable, because you guys, like clockwork, watch these streams, watch the videos, support the channel, and I'm incredibly grateful. And the people that routinely message about the live stream, it's that sort of encouragement. So thank you for keeping me going on that one. And I know I've said this for like the 6th live stream in a row, but there is a shitload of content coming. There is, I think I'm sort of like, with the summer and with the good weather and going out and doing shooting a lot of matches over the season, doing a lot more training. I think I'm just sort of enjoying the summer for shooting for once, rather than doing sort of work. So I'm actually doing, I think, more shooting than I've ever done before, which leaves very little time to edit videos and actually create content. But I've got to the point where my 1 terabyte hard drive on my computer is not enough for all of the raw footage that I have, and it's spilling onto various external drives. And I think there will be, when I finally get my arse into gear, maybe when the weather turns, the evenings get a little bit shorter and we're all cooped up inside, there is just going to be this string of I think some of the best content that the channel's ever going to put out. And I've got some really, I think, really exciting ideas for different content to come out on the channel as well. So again, thank you for sticking with. I know you follow the channel for content, and when I'm not putting out content, I feel incredibly guilty. So thank you for sticking with me on that side. But yeah, let's get into the big question at the moment. Who is going to be PM? Well, that I'm not at the moment too worried about in terms of who's going to be PM. We're going to look at who potentially would be best, and it's important again to remind that a government is not made up of one person. One person can make an extremely big difference in that government, and certainly the PM usually more than anybody. But it's down to the number of votes. So sort of regardless of what the Prime Minister wants to do or thinks, the whole party is usually aligned, and actually makes it very unlikely for the PM to single-handedly spearhead, but maybe push or direct or lead in some ways. Not forgetting that Boris Johnson, for all intents and purposes, is pro-gun. A hunter himself, various pictures of him shooting out there with braces of pheasant, this, that, and the other. And we've still seen restrictions. We've still seen, confiscations of firearms like the Mars and lever releases under his watch. So, just because the PM might like going out and shooting a few birds doesn't mean that they're going to be the light and saviour. But anyway, I digress. Let's get into who potentially could be the best for shooting sports here in the UK. And we'll start with Rishi. I think, is Rishi currently the bookies' favourite? I don't know. But from general reading, I think he's more likely to become PM. And also the reason that I want to talk about this is that, the Conservative Party members have a chance to choose. Like, this isn't going to be forced upon the country. Well, it's going to be forced upon the country by the Conservative Party members. But if you're a Conservative Party member, you get a vote on this. Like, you can have an influence. Of course, when we have consultations, the shooting community always comes out in their massive numbers to vote on things and have their voices heard. But you generally can steer this. So I think it's important that if you are going to vote on the leader of the Conservative Party and therefore the Prime Minister, that if shooting's a part of your life, then that's something to consider, and maybe you need a bit of information to be able to make that decision either way. Now, Rishi, being the PM for Richmond, is in massive shooting country. He's in grouse shooting country. Now, that doesn't mean that he's necessarily for it, but if basically a lot of your constituents are making their livelihood off of shooting sports, you sort of have to get on their side, otherwise you're not going to have a job. And he's actually come out vocally in the past, finding various articles in support of shooting sports in terms of the general license and also grouse shooting. So the first big nod, and I don't think this was necessarily completely in support, but it certainly wasn't against. But this was an update that Rishi Sunak gave on the general licenses. For those of you that may not remember, basically the pigeon shooting community or corvid shooting community was basically put on pause for a fair amount of time. Chris Packham and his sort of gang of loons basically challenged the general licenses. The reason we can go out there and shoot the likes of pigeons and other corvids is because there is a general license that extends to everyone, making it automatically extending to everyone. You don't need to apply for it or this, that, and the other. It's basically a list of guidance and rules for shooting these birds, but it gives you permission to legally go out there and do it. And with the Chris Packham challenge, they removed these general licenses, which made it illegal to shoot these birds, and it was horrific. You were getting magpies and crows eating the eyes of baby lambs, and the farmers stood there watching, not being able to do anything. Of course, crop protection is a big part of farm life, and these birds destroy acres and acres of farming land, and that's why the likes of keepers and farmers are out there in the fields shooting these pests. Now, Rishi did come out and gave a response, but it seems favourable towards the general licenses and towards the shooting communities. Things like he was shocked and was extremely disappointed, fully appreciates and understands the considerable disruption this action causes to our agricultural community and rural economy and the livelihoods of many. Now, just because he says that doesn't necessarily mean that it's truthful and that he actually knows what he's talking about. But again, being the MP for an area that is heavily around the rural economy and agricultural community, the good chances are this is sort of at face value, and basically goes on to say about their importance, clarifies a few points. So there was so much misinformation going around and so much confusion, and he's obviously taken the time to sort of break it down and help out his constituents, and has also gone out to say that he's going to forward it to friends and colleagues and maybe have a little bit of influence. Now, if he was completely anti-gun, he's not going to get on this at all. You're going to get one of those, thank you for getting in contact with us. Thank you, but no thank you. But actually proactive about it, the language used, supportive, and understands the importance of these general licenses for shooting. The other sort of big nod that he's pro-shooting, and certainly pro-shooting sports in terms of, say, grouse shooting and game, is a speech that he came out and talked about grouse shooting. Understood, again, the benefit to the rural economy, the community of his constituents, and really seemed to have his head screwed on of the importance of grouse shooting, also taking the time to go out there onto the moors. Obviously an easy win photo opportunity for to impress his constituents and keep his job, but he's definitely engaging with it, and there's certainly nothing anti. There definitely seems to be nothing anti, and actually everything pointing to showing that he's pro shooting sports and sees it as valuable. And of course, and this was a while ago, I don't think, is there a date? The time making a case in a 2016 review of grouse shooting. So this was a while ago, but grouse shooting at the moment is, well, it's constantly under attack, and there's various avenues. Again, I think it's the Chris Packham lot that's continuously trying to disrupt it and shut it down. So actually having the PM from an area that is heavily involved in grouse shooting, he understands grouse shooting and seems to be overly supportive of grouse shooting. I don't think that can be a bad thing. Again, it's not necessarily about the PM single-handedly going out there and righting wrongs and this, that, the other, but it's using their influence and also to give exposure to the right people to drum up support, which can help fight things off. Now, that's really all I could find. I did spend a reasonable amount of time trying to find as much articles around shooting and guns between the two candidates, and that's like pretty much all I found on Rishi. Of course, it's a double-edged sword when it comes to, not a double-edged sword, but a poison chalice to talk about guns and shooting too much as a politician. At the end of the day, you're trying to keep everybody happy and keep your job, and shooting and firearms and gun control is an incredibly divisive subject, and most MPs are going to steer away from the subject because they know they're literally just going to split people down the middle with it and potentially lose half of their votes. So it's like, unless I need to get involved, I won't. So that's why you don't usually see that much or MPs being that vocal. So that's all I was able to find on Rishi, but it certainly seems positive overall. Let me know if there's anything about these people that I've not been able to find, and I can sort of bring up to the rest of the chat and to everyone else watching the live stream. But certainly seems a positive one for Rishi. Nothing really to do with target sports. That's certainly what I'm more focused on. Yes, pigeon shooting and grouse shooting is still incredibly important to the shooting community as a whole. Selfishly, I prefer shooting at bits of paper, clays and steel. It would be nice to see something from Rishi, not just on the grouse. There's always this division within our community of the tweeds and the, I don't know, like the tacticals, right? The tactical Timmies. And I think it's well understood that grouse shooting, game shooting, basically over and under side-by-side shotgun shooting will outlast every discipline. It's probably one of the safest in some in the respect of the equipment being taken away, it is by far the safest discipline to be into. The risk, obviously, with grouse and with any sort of blood sport, as it were, is that you are killing something, and that's actually where the majority of the attacks come with those sports. So I don't think it's ever going to be, the equipment that gets banned that shuts down grouse or game shooting in general. It's going to be the animal lovers and the tree huggers that want you to stop killing, pheasants or pigeons or this, that, and the other, like Chris Packham is at the moment. So it's a pretty safe area of the sport, I think, overall. It would be nice to maybe have some reassurance about maybe, I don't know, practical shooting or target rifle, stuff like that. But anyway, there is another candidate, which is Liz Truss, and just going through Google, trying to do as much research and find as much as possible. There's actually a very significant sort of thing on her history around lead. Obviously, lead is an incredibly hot topic at the moment with the Basques' voluntary ban, the HSE and UK Reach coming out and proposing all sorts of various restrictions. Is a big issue, and lead, the issue of lead affects all shooters. Even the areas where they don't necessarily want to implement stuff, like on indoor shooting, every shooter is going to be affected. Don't get me wrong on that. It's going to affect us, obviously in different levels, but it's a big issue. And interestingly, Liz Truss has previously been involved in this conversation. So this article from 2016, no ban on lead ammunition. It's like, it is a bit ironic going back to these sort of older articles. No, lead will never be banned here in the UK. Ha ha ha. Yeah, say that now. Following the consideration of the Lead Ammunition Group's report, the government has decided there is not enough evidence to ban lead shot. I mean, it's interesting that just in 5-6 years, things have done a complete U-turn. It's just like what's made this old report obsolete now, right? Or did they not do a good enough job? It's U-turn central. But the chair of the Lead Ammunition Group was Liz Truss MP herself, and said the report did not show that the impacts of lead ammunition were significant enough to justify changing our current policy. Therefore, there will therefore be no ban on lead ammunition. Basque have welcomed the government's decision in the middle of the association's campaign against a global lead shot ban. Come on, it writes itself, doesn't it? It's like that, Basque welcomes this decision not to ban lead shot. A few years later, Basque, we should transition away from lead shot. It's like, oh fuck, you can't make it up, can you? So whilst overall, I don't think this necessarily again shows a pro or an anti stance from Liz Truss, and this was, I believe, the actual letter in which it's referencing. It's a very fact of the matter. Or matter of fact, that would be the correct way to say that. She's basically going on what the report says, the findings of the report. This is a summation of the report and presenting the findings. So it's not about opinion, right? This is purely on a fact, which is good to see, because it would be far too easy to go, oh yes, the research showed there's not a huge risk, but actually they twist it as, well, we can all agree that you don't want to be eating lead, right? So we might as well ban it. And that's sort of the angle they're coming at now. So yeah, it's certainly not an anti-stance from her, but it seems a very matter of fact. But I think the really important thing with Liz Truss in regards to this is that if she was to become Prime Minister, with the potentially impending further restrictions that we're going to get on lead ammunition in the UK, to what extent that's going to be, we don't know. With a Prime Minister at the helm that has been previously involved in reports on lead ammunition, she's going to be clued up. She's going to hopefully know what she's talking about, and again will have the ability to contact the right people, to apply pressure or influence where it's required if she wants to do it in a good way. Again, that can work against us because she can know how to be very effective against us by pushing the right or / wrong buttons. But certainly this is pretty much the biggest issue facing our sport at the moment, and having a potential prime minister that was part of a previous recommendation not to ban lead shot, and has obviously spent the time and knows what she's talking about, can't be a bad thing in my books for the sport. It's certainly going to become a hot topic, and regardless of her being the prime minister, previous MPs that have had anything to do with it, if they want to come in and ban lead, they're going to get called back in. People that have experience are going to be asked to comment and get involved, and again help with recommendations. So being the prime minister, potentially being the prime minister, having that sway, I think could be very important for us on this big threat. Some interesting, again, I was searching for anything sort of shooting or gun related. So these aren't necessarily anything to do with lawful firearms ownership or even shooting sports of any context, but some really interesting statements that Liz Truss has come out with in the past, like Daniel supermodel alert, prepare yourself, this could go one of two ways. A big shout out to Dan for doing the tireless work of being a moderator on this channel, and I never make it easy for him. UK's Liz Truss: I support Brits who take up arms against Putin. That's, I mean, I think that's safe to say that's pro-gun, right? That's certainly not an anti-gun statement, is it? I think this sort of maybe gives a bit of more of a mindset of the sort of person that she is, and basically, said the war in Ukraine was a fight for freedom and democracy for the whole of Europe, and basically she supports British citizens heading to Ukraine to join the fight against Russia. So it's like, I mean, I don't know how necessarily that translates to lawful firearms ownership here in the UK, or shooting sports or target sports, but again, she seems like a pretty, I don't know. It certainly doesn't seem anti-gun, right? I mean, anyone that supports anyone taking up arms against somebody, that's inherently like the definition of pro-gun, right? And then there's a few other weird bits in her history, and this is sort of typical, I think, sensationalism from our mainstream media. I know, right? Hard to believe. Truss admits UK broke ban on Saudi arms sale 3 times. Now, I tried to do as much research on this specific thing as possible, because this sounds like she's sending over tanks and rocket launchers and AK-47s and stuff like that, and I don't think it was actually any actual arms. It was more like radio stuff. It's still stuff that probably shouldn't be sent over to the Saudis, but it wasn't like munitions and weapons. It was more infrastructure stuff, telecommunications, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's something to do with guns. Again, I don't know what it says. I don't know what it says about her pro or anti-gun stance, but it is an interesting background to have. I mean, it's quite funny. The International Trade Secretary admitted the UK had breached, for the 3rd time, a court order banning the sale of weapons to Saudi Arabia, which could be used in violations of international law in the conflicts in Yemen. So she's really not afraid of like conflict or like taking up arms, is she? She like, regardless of who each side is, It's like, you know, oh, there's an opportunity to take up arms, go for it. Again, I think it points to being pro-gun to an extent. But yeah, I think the long and the short of this this whole sample is being, what was she at the time, International Trade Secretary. She was responsible for giving the yay or nay on various import and export licenses, and basically shouldn't have granted various licenses in these cases, because what was being imported was actually banned to that country under international law. Something else that I think it's more fun than anything else. She's up. She seems like she's a girl that's up for most things. You know, climbing in there to the tank in a tank and going for a bit of a drive. So not scared of being around, you know, military equipment, guns and cannons and stuff like that. So again, overall, it's not a huge amount to be able to steer either way between the two. There is a little bit more. Again, I don't think any more information than what I've just said, but BASC have actually done a bit of a summary of those points, basically saying like, look, if you've got a vote, use this to maybe steer you either way. And as I've said, that's interesting. So Rishi has attended all the party parliamentary group on shooting and conservation for which BASC provides the secretariat. So yeah, he's engaged with the shooting community in terms of on a political side. So that, well, again, it's, you know, the whole poison chalice point, but a government minister which restricts his abilities to speak publicly on issues outside of his remit. So that's, again, probably why you don't get a lot of other comments around firearms if it's nothing to do with them. And of course, you know, the general licenses, as we discussed. He's also been supportive of the marketing of game and shooting assurance. And in July last year, he acquired a fox red Labrador puppy, described by the press as a gun dog. This leads to the rumour that Rishi shoots, but can't confirm that. So again, seems overall pretty positive. Liz Truss, so her constituency is shooting country, being Southwest Norfolk. So yeah, supportive of shooting. I think that was all to do with the ban. Oh no, this was, she spoke at BASC's rural reception at the Conservative conference and told us, I can assure you that a Conservative majority government will be fully supportive of shooting, of fishing, of angling fishing, but no, angling. Oh, it's late. I don't feel well. You know what? You can read it yourselves. And we will make sure that any political threats to those industries are very speedily rebutted. Of course, we lost more guns under the Conservatives than any other party, so, you know, it's sort of history would say that's not exactly true. In 2015, she accepted a brace of pheasants from BASC, saying that game is an important... oh no, go away. Game is an important product of shooting, and the role of the sport plays in supporting the appearance, health and economy of our countryside is invaluable. 2006, that was all the lead ammo restrictions. So for once, I generally don't think for once we can lose. They both seem they certainly both seem not anti-gun. They both seem to be engaged with either with BASC or other rural groups. They seem to know what they're talking about when either it comes to like the issues of lead, the issues of general licenses, of countryside management and the rural economy. And they seem, you know, what they have said in the past seems to be overly supportive of shooting sports. So, you know, I think it's difficult to maybe pick between the two. I think if you're purely going to do it on the pro or anti-gun or, you know, shooting stance, I think I would probably lean towards I think the general feel that I get is Rishi is probably more of a shooter, more pro gun. But what might flip me over to Liz is her understanding of the lead ban, and the lead ammunition issues, which of course is a huge issue for us. So do you want someone that's more? But then again, if Rishi's more into shooting, then he would be aware of the lead ammunition. So I think it's a difficult one. But I don't think you can lose. I really don't think we're going to end up... There's certainly not a bad option here. One might be slightly better than the other, but they both seem to be pro-gun. So for once, I think we're in safe hands. It's going to be interesting, certainly with the likes of the lead ammunition threat and any potential other contests that the likes of Chris Packham want to raise, how the likes of Rishi as PM or Liz as PM actually, how that plays out. But we shall see. But there we go. Let me know what you think between those two people, whether you would vote particularly one way or you'd vote particularly another way. And let's dive into the comment section. Here we go. And see what you guys are talking about. D Dirty, Callum, do you have contacts at Basque? Get them to ask what regs they are putting in place, re crop spraying and dust release around farmland, as this is a bigger health issue rurally. Absolutely, the best thing to do, because I always have a complete mind blank after the stream. If you want to drop me an email at EnglishShooting@gmail.com. I've actually got the email for Christopher Gratius, who actually wrote the article I was just referencing from on Basque. He is the Director of Communications and Public Affairs for Basque. Very, very responsive, and has never shied away from having a conversation with myself. So I'd be more than happy to pass that on to him for you. Or if you want to raise it, send it into Basque. I'm sure you've already done it, but if you haven't, if you're a Basque member, they will listen to you. And they're more likely to listen to you rather than me. I can't imagine why. Is Basque still cucking? That's probably why. That's because I run a channel where they ask, is Basque still cucking? In terms of lead, then I think yes. I think that's a that is a good assumption. Horak the Marge, going to guess Liz is better than Rishi not by much. Again, there doesn't seem to be much in it either way. Markin, no FAC yet. Internal complications. You're not in Northern Ireland, are you? We'll be getting on to that in a sec. Well, keep at it. It is just a waiting game. Unfortunately, the waiting game has become significantly longer over the past 2 years, but it's always been a waiting game. When I first got into shooting and went through the process of getting firearm and shotgun certificates, you just have to be patient. There's literally nothing else you can do, right? You can send them an email, you can phone them. It's even difficult to do that at some firearm licensing departments now. But you just got to wait and keep at it. Don't let their tardiness put you off getting into the sport, that's for sure. Can we make a random cat PM instead? As long as they're pro-gun, go for it. Machine gun kitties for everyone. I think we should remember David Cameron. I used to live in his constituency. He said every time that he was up for election that he believed we should move towards cannabis legalization. This is English shooting, not English smoking. Bong and a blintz. Cigar and a waffle. Or a cigarette and a pancake. That took a very left field there. Thanks for that nugget. MK Brawl sup over their subjects. Oh. It's true, isn't it? So can we get back pistols? So can we Can we get back pistols with which one? Or which one can we get back pistols with? Again, I don't know. There's certainly nothing. I mean, you might find out that like Rishi is like a mad shooter. Not in that way. Like, is big into his shooting. Becomes PM and he's like, ha ha ha, I'm extending Section 5 as a general license. Oh, could you imagine? You got a license for that gun. As it would happen. Yes, I do. I really don't think, whilst I think it's important to keep tabs on these things and be aware of where certain politicians or governments stand when it comes to shooting sports and firearms ownership, like it isn't the be all and end all, and certainly from what we can find, there's no like one option and we're going to get handguns back, one option we're all going to be taking up knitting. It's not really something that I think to concern about too much, just to be aware of. And again, if you have the opportunity to vote, you should be educated on, who you're voting for. And there may be points, just like I think Liz Truss's experience with the lead is a big point for me. You may not think that. You may be an avid grouse shooter and you might live, in Richmond. Then voting for Rishi is, though his previous points on shooting are probably going to be a lot more important for you. But just for that information to be out there, I mean, obviously the closest we've come in any shape or form to having MPs that are, pro-gun and would push for handguns to be legalised again is actually with Nigel Farage and UKIP. He regularly would come out and say that the handgun ban has achieved nothing, that if it was down to him, he would legalise handguns again for the purposes of sport. So we don't have anyone like that, I don't believe, in the Conservative Party that has said anything close to that. So we just have to keep waiting for it. Packham thinks that peat burning removes peat, doesn't understand it's saturated with water when they do it, or is a complete liar. I would he's been caught out numerous times, just, for somebody that portrays himself as such an expert, he very quickly pleads ignorance. So, you have to sort of, well, hang on a minute, you can't be an expert on something and then play that, oh, I just didn't know, I'm not really clued up on this card. So, I would lead towards lying. Wasn't there all that weirdness with his, allegedly he was writing his own death threat letters. There was a handwriting expert who compared the handwriting on some of the notes that Packham said were left, and he suggested that there were a few similarities between, Chris Packham's handwriting and the handwriting that were on these letters, allegedly. So, yeah, the guy is a fanatic. Like, the guy is, he's not, and I don't mean this because he's got Asperger's, and I don't mean this in relevance to that at all. But the guy's just not right in some ways. He is just like a militant wildlife conservationist, and this is the thing, is it's all filled with idealisms, right? He doesn't know, actually, he's not the people managing these vast expanses of land. He's not the one that it affects. He just wants there to be more wildlife and more birds for him to go and go and play with. But he doesn't understand, yes, okay, we've got 100 deer on this estate. Oh, great, it would be better if we had 500 deer. Well, no, it actually wouldn't. Having the overpopulation and lack of food, it's going to cause a few issues very, very quickly. So yeah, it's all based on idealisms, and actually makes things worse. When there's been this whole thing with, I think it's Brewdog and the grouse moors, and they've stopped them from shooting on various areas, they've stopped them from burning, and there's huge ecological issues now on those expanses of land. They're not being managed correctly anymore, and the wildlife are now actually suffering. So it's all well and good to say, oh, it could be better, but it's like I think I've used this example before on the channel. It's like the Green Party in Brighton. Their idealism is that everything that is possible to recycle will be recycled. So you have 15 different bins with, you know, umpteen different collection days and fines and this, that, and the other. If you put, you know, you put some tin foil in a general waste bin and it can't be recycled, you're going to get stoned to death. And Brighton actually has one of the worst recycling rates in the country, because, you know, there's the ideal, like, which is we want everything, but what people don't get is, like, most of the time that's not achievable, and you've got to balance it. There has to be a compromise to some extent. And the compromise and the balance is always trying to get as close to the ideal as possible without going too close to it and actually taking a backward step. And that's what that's what the Green Party did in Brighton. Like, well, no, we're going to have a no compromise approach to recycling, and then before you know it, actually you're recycling even less because it's not manageable. It takes too much time. People are too confused. It's, you know, you end up worse. And I think that is exactly what's happening with Chris Packham. Like, look at it. Oh, we don't want these birds being shot. Okay, but now we have young lambs having their eyeballs eaten out while they're still alive. You know, it's like, you know, and now the price of bread has doubled because, you know, we can't protect the crops, and, you know, wheat's got more expensive, this, that, and the other. So it's like, again, it's these idealisms of we don't want any animal to die, but actually they are a predator in some sense, and they're going to kill more wildlife and steal rare eggs and or endangered species eggs and stuff like that. So you actually lose out because it's narrow-sighted and, again, idealistic. I just like to shoot my guns and not bothered. What at? So long as it's safe and legal, of course, we will need to stick together. Absolutely, Gez. I say this all the time. Of course, I have my preferences for shooting. You all know I'm much more into my practical shooting. I'm going to prioritize that for me personally. But you hand me a gun with a trigger and give me a safe legal target to shoot it at, I will shoot it. I don't care if that's with a BB gun, an air gun, a 308 single shot target rifle, black powder, musket, or a 12 gauge, high capacity shotgun. Oh, did I just use that? I just used that phrase, didn't I? A section 1 unrestricted capacity shotgun. What is high capacity? So yeah, I'm all for that. Like, just as long as people are being safe and lawful, they can do what they want. Of course, I'm going to have my own preferences to what I'm going to want to try and shoot more of. And okay, it was still practical, but it was like Tuesday. So there's been various rumours and talkings about the UK potentially holding the Action Air World Shoot. And I would very much like to be a part of that. In terms of shooting, also in other aspects as well, if I can help in any way. But I certainly want to shoot it, and the best way to secure a spot in shooting it is to make to make the team. I've sort of made my intention clear that I'd like to be considered for the standard team, but I need to practice. I need to be there and actually, be putting BBs down range and improving and showing commitment to the sport. So ended up going to an Action Air training day training evening up at Excite XPSC. What is it? If Paul's watching, chip in. My brain no worky. Anyway, it's like, it is one of the premier Action Air clubs. A lot of the UK's best shooters or Action Air shooters attend this club. Certainly, I think the current standard champion and open champion, they do happen to be brothers, and one happens to be Paul, who works at Magload. So we are incredibly supportive of that anyway. But anyway, it's a great club. If you want, actually, let me I'll bring up their their Facebook page. And you guys, if anybody is interested in learning a bit more, why does it always log me out on my Facebook? Is it going to do two-factor authentication? Oh no, it seems I was already logged in. Xsite, Practical Shooting Club, XPSC. So my longer point on this is that I'm not one of these people, BB guns, yes, it is still practical and I love all of practical, but give me a 9mm pistol or give me a 1.7, no, they're like what diameter? Anyway, I don't profess to be an expert on firearms. Give me a BB gun or give me a 9mm pistol, I will go and shoot both of them and I will still have fun shooting them. But if you want to learn more about Action Air, because it's a great gateway into practical shooting, very little restrictions on like Action Air guns. You don't need licenses. Being a member of the UK PSA is an exemption under the VCRA Act. So if you are a UK PSA member, you can go and buy an Action Air gun that isn't painted two-tone. So I'm just going to drop that into chat for you guys. That is the XPSC Facebook page. And you can get in contact with them and get involved. So yeah, we should all be together. If people are out there pulling triggers, as long as it's safe, as long as it's legal, we should all be supporting each other in each other pulling those triggers, regardless of what the trigger's attached to or what it's being shot at. Again, as long as it's legal and safe. Philip, English shooting as a community, we need to back whoever is under assault, regardless of the discipline, because ultimately, when they're done with one, they're focused on the other. Absolutely. Again, something that was said from pretty much day one. If we all look after our own, if we all, they're not coming after us. They're not coming after us. We don't need to worry about that. That doesn't affect me. Well, yeah, when they finally get to the last bastion, which will be side by side and over and under shotguns, and the shotgun crew are going, well, hang on a minute, why isn't there anybody else helping us? Oh, wait, it's because all their shit got banned and they left the sport ages ago. And that's why it's still, if you couldn't guess, still massively pisses me off with the response of shooting organisations and various communities and associations to the Mars and Lever release. Like, so many of the associations and organisations were like, these are sort of like fringe guns, there's only a few hundred of them out there in the UK, really this affects a very small amount of the shooting community. And none of this was actually ever said, but you just got that impression. Like, the response from the NRA was just weak. Like, I think they wrote a public statement about it, and that was about it. Oh no, please don't take them away. Secretly, they're masturbating furiously into a tissue because they don't want these scary tactical guns on their ranges. Like, you can imagine it. Like in an NRA meeting, like they want to ban more guns. What colour are the guns? They're black. Fine, ban the scary black guns. It's like, for and the reason I speak from, this isn't necessarily just opinion. Let's not forget that like half of Bisley will get their fucking knickers in a twist if somebody goes and shoots on Sentry with a slightly too loud muzzle brake. It's like, it's shooting, it's loud, it goes bang, deal with it. If you didn't want to be next to somebody making a loud bang, perhaps shooting sports is the wrong fucking sport for you. It's like, so anyway, yes. Piss poor response from the likes of the organisations and the associations, because it was like, there's bigger things for us to worry about than those. So they took away Mars and Lever release, which massively hurt actually the disabled shooters. A lot of disabled shooters that weren't able to function or manipulate a bolt action. It was a better way for them to be able to shoot, an easier way for them to shoot, so they lost out massively. And it's just another chip, no matter how small it was over in terms of the bigger picture of shooting sports in the UK, yeah, very, very small part of it, but that's how they slowly erode. And look at the recent announcement of the new restrictions. You know, you're now going to have higher security for likes of 50 cal. Well, that's going to cost more money, make it harder to afford, so less people are going to go into it. There's going to be people that currently have 50 cals that either can't afford or can't be asked to install that level of security, so they give it up. Like, so that, I'm not saying I necessarily disagree with the enhanced security, but it's just, that's another chip. No matter how small, it's another chip. Restricting ammunition components, it's another chip. What was the mini rifle exemption? It's another chip. Whether or not, I know I came out overall in support of actually a lot of these new restrictions, because I think, again, if you're on board with the likes of with the general idea of certification and firearms licensing, then it does make sense. But these are chips. We're never seeing our laws and the industry do that. We're constantly showing a reduction. So yes, 100%, we need to stick together. We need to help one another. We need to defend one another and club together when we get attacked. Tony Butty, for Target, you need to join a club. I'm guessing somebody asked about how to get into Target Sports. Yeah, so if you want just as a general reminder, if you want a firearms certificate for Target Sports, you need to be a member of a Home Office approved club. So you need to find a Home Office approved club. You can find club lists on the likes of the UKPSA website. The NSRA and the NRA website have various lists. Google is always a good, if I live near Portsmouth, just typing in Portsmouth shooting range, Portsmouth gun club will throw up a few options. Then you need to go there, become a full member. Once you're a full member, then you can apply for your firearms certificate. Daniel, walking fine tightrope tonight. Adam, what are the rules on speech in the UK? Is it true you can get arrested for saying certain things? It's true that you can lose your firearm and shotgun certificate for saying the wrong thing. Can confirm. Ask me how I know. So, arrested for saying the wrong thing. Yes. I mean, I'm trying to think of an example that can't be pulled out of context and later be used to arrest me. But any country, like even in the likes of America, you can be arrested for saying the wrong thing. I think maybe you want to tweak that to having the wrong opinion. Can you be arrested in the UK for having the wrong opinion? But like any country, you can be arrested for saying the wrong things. There are certain things that if you say out loud in an airport, you will be arrested. Like it's very easy to do. Thankfully, not speaking from experience on that one. But yeah, in terms of speech, like we don't have a protected freedom of speech here in the UK. Generally, whilst it's not protected, like we're still freer to speak than a lot of countries across the world. We are still a democracy. There is still welcome debate on quite controversial issues, but we are, there are these really ridiculous stories about I think there was a kid that called another kid short, and the police ended up getting called to the school because of a hate crime incident, and like that sort of stuff. You start thinking like, what the fuck, like like he called me short, but you are short. So yeah, that's just unfortunately the degradation of, like, you know, of degradation, but that's, you know, it's PC gone mad, isn't it? But that's happening massively out in America as well. Like, actually, whilst you're not likely to be arrested for it, you know, I mean, the police, you know, they don't have any resources anyway, so I wouldn't, you know, a lot more people are worried about being cancelled. They're worried about losing their job. They're losing about being publicly vilified for saying the wrong thing. You know, you could argue one, you know, that could be worse than actually being arrested. Being arrested doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be charged with something, you're going to end up with a criminal record. But actually being publicly vilified and losing your job and being ostracized from communities and stuff like that, that can be a massive problem. Being arrested can also trigger all of that as well. But I think in America you're seeing a lot more. I'm assuming, you know, I think, Adam, you are from America, if my memory serves me correctly. So yeah, I mean, I think it's it could potentially be far easier in the US to cause yourself more trouble in saying the wrong thing. But then on the flip side, you know, after the pretty mammoth travel that we did, something that never ceases to amaze me is how people freely speak out in America. And it's something cultural that is very, very different. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And I sort of have to remember to turn that off when I come back into the UK. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should. I don't know. Might get me into more trouble. But like, Americans just always seem to be so unapologetic about their opinions. Like, but in a good way. Like, this is my opinion. I'm telling you my opinion. If you don't like it, no hard feelings, but at least you know my opinion on it, right? And I'm not going to be prevented from telling my opinion on it. And I absolutely love that, because, as I say, a lot of the time, through discussing sensitive, you know, deemed controversial topics, that's how we progress as a society. If we don't talk about things, how do we move forward? How do we come to a compromise, to a solution? You just end up with extremism. If both sides of the argument don't talk to one another and they isolate from each other, you create echo chambers, you create fanaticism and extremism. It's far better to get stuff out in the open and actually have a talk about it. You know, so yeah, I mean, can you be arrested for saying certain things in the UK? Yes, like you can in the US. Yeah, when it comes to the likes of firearms, I think, again, a better question would be, you know, do you feel that as a firearms owner or as a certificate holder, your not freedom of speech, because again we don't technically have it, but your ability to speak freely is diminished? That's an interesting, I think, a much more interesting question. I think I'm gonna jump the gun, as it were, and say yes, straight away. You know, as a certificate holder, as a gun owner, you will be held to a much higher standard. Your words, your opinions will and can be used against you, even if they're not based on any, say, factual basis. It doesn't, you know, there's my solicitor recently put it very, very well in an email, which was about, like, the burden of proof. I think it was, like, when you're talking a criminal investigation, there is a burden of proof. It has to be beyond all reasonable doubt for any crime. When it comes to firearms licensing here in the UK, there's not that level of burden. There's not the burden of proof. They can take hearsay. They can take opinion. They can take, you know, it doesn't need to be as solid. So you do have to watch what you say. You know, it's and there's plenty of people, not just myself, plenty of people that have had lots of issues in the past because of what they've said, because of what they've posted on social media. And I'm not talking about particular videos or pictures or whatever. I mean, just literally comments have caused people to have their certificates revoked, or to have issues with firearms licensing with the police. So, you know, in like, you know, again, I love the phrase, the second protects the first, as in the Second Amendment protects the right to the right for freedom of speech. And again, it's like it is a completely different attitude in the US and also culture, whereas in the UK your ability to speak freedom diminishes, your ability to speak freely diminishes with firearms ownership. Out in the US, your ability to speak freely pretty much increases when you own firearms, and that is, I think, a very quite obvious divide there. You know, it doesn't matter if you have a gun or not. You will speak your mind out in the States. You will exercise your freedom of speech. Here, not so much. Now you've said it. Now, that's it. You've said it. Now we're all doomed. Sorry. Was the short kid you, Callum? Look, I can swing the band hammer as well. Like, don't push me. I've always spoken my mind. Guess it's lucky I left the UK when I did. It's tempting. I'm not that short, right? I'm like 5'9" on a good day. 5'10" if I've got heels on. Depends on how big the heels. The thing is, like, when I was at school, I generally was one of the tallest, and then I went from school to college, and then I'm one of the shortest. Like, what the fuck happened there? I also have a habit of surrounding myself with actually above average height people, which doesn't do me any favors anyway. Bruce, what are the official figures for lead poisoning by ingestion, hospital admissions per annum in the UK versus lead poisoning by ingestion from lead pipes from older properties per annum? Again, I don't think the statistics on that actually exist, but it would be very interesting to know that. Maybe there could be a freedom of information request that's put in there. Hi Callum, did your rifle get sorted by Cotswold? Yeah, so I wanted to give I actually have had quite a long phone conversation with Otto yesterday or day before. I just want to clarify, so for those of you that don't know, I shot my first level 3 with the new mag loaded battle arms. So it's the battle arms Ambi, that's fully mag load, and that's the gun that I've been using to train and obviously compete. The gun is built by Cotswold Classic Arms. Highly recommend Cotswold Classic Arms if you're in the market for a 2.2 semi-automatic, or even say a straight pull 4-bore. Absolutely astounding rifle builder, and the gun came from Cotswold Classic Arms. Perfect. Like, I'd put 2,000-3,000 rounds through the gun in training and testing the mags and this, that, and the other, and it was performing faultlessly, and not a single issue with the gun. Go to the first level 3 with it, the first round on the first stage, click. And I was having this issue. It was literally just like a light switch. Basically, you know, things move, things wear, things change on the gun, and an issue had presented it. So nothing that Cotswold or Otto had done wrong. It was just one of these things. It had presented itself as an issue. Basically, what it turned out is it was something to do, or again, this hasn't been fully confirmed yet, but what it seems to be is that the better mag adapter was sticking. So for those of you that don't know, there's a better mag adapter. It's an adapter frame. Let's see if I can just get a picture of it for those. I need to do like a deep dive on the gun and show you all this anyway. So this sits up in the magwell, and it allows you to use 15-22 magazines in a mil-spec AR with, usually with the CMMG conversion kit. And this piece is meant to be like free floating. It's meant to move freely up and down the magwell. This does have its weaknesses, like I experienced at Basildon, because if you lean on the mags, if you rest on the mags, the better mag adapter and the magazine shoots up and then starts interfering with the bolt, doesn't feed properly, this, that and the other. That's just a nuance of that setup. But what was happening with my better mag adapter was it wasn't falling back down. So when you loaded a mag in and it shifted it up, when the bolt came forward, it was catching on the better mag. It wasn't pushing it back down and moving it in the way. It was slowing down the bolt, so the gun wasn't going into battery. Now, we didn't actually have to send it back to Cotswold to have that fixed. Connors knows his way around these guns, or most guns anyway. So he was able to identify this issue, worked back from it, and basically what he's done now is highly polished the better mag adapter. Now, I think it's either an issue like with the better mag adapters being out of spec, or the magwell chamber for the Battle Arms Ambi has a slightly tighter tolerance. At the end of the day, these guns are not designed to run the better mag adapter. They are designed to have a 223 magazine put up there. So this is, and I will do this full review, because there are pros and cons of a CMMG converted gun, and more moving parts, having parts that aren't really meant to, they're adapters, right? They were never meant to be in the rifle when the rifle was designed. But this is also why it's important to go to somewhere like Cotswold Classic Arms that knows this stuff, because Connors was having the discussion with Otto about it, and Otto, just over the phone, he was like, this is going to be the issue, and Connors was like, yeah, that's what I thought, I've already fixed it. So this is why you go to somewhere like Cotswold, because they know these things inside and out, can tune the guns to all the different parts, like we say all the time, the CMMG kit is not meant, CMMG kit is meant to be universal. You're meant to be able to drop it in any other, any 226, 223 rifle and run away with it, but it needs to be tuned to the gun for ultimate reliability. So does the better mag. In Otto's defense, the gun had been tuned. Everything was working. He had done his job. He was taking it down the range, testing it. The gun was working flawlessly, and he sent it to me. The gun was working flawlessly. So this was just something that couldn't really be foreseen, and just presented itself over time with wear and with use. But the gun is now better, I've been assured by Connors. And hopefully for the last level 3 mini rifle match of the year, which is in Wales, and it is the 8th and the 9th of October. If you want to get signed up for that, it will be an incredible match. Every level 3, well, I've been to 2 now in Wales, a mini rifle and a shotgun. The mini rifle last year was absolutely astounding. I think probably my favourite match of the year, and the shotgun match again was just done to an incredible standard with some incredible stages. So really looking forward to that mini rifle. Hopefully the gun won't let me down, and I might be able to see. It's frustrating because I've been doing more practice, more I felt like I've been getting better, and then you go to a level 3 where it's the real test to see where you are now against everyone in the country, and then the gun the gun has issues. So you're like, am I there's very little to sort of take away when the gun's having problems. You can't really see your full performance. So yes, a long-winded answer to say yes, the gun is probably sorted now. What's the earliest you can renew a Section 2 certificate? I want to apply for a Section 1 as well, but have 13 months left on my Section 2. I think if you just go for a coterminous anyway, they should just process it. At the end of the day, all they have to effectively do is just cancel your old certificate and give you a coterminous. That shouldn't be an issue. Brian, can we a vid on hunting and bits? Not everyone who watches does sport shooting. So you're asking if you want me to do more hunting and stuff. Again, the channel is sort of, the channel started about relaying information that I was finding out through my journey into shooting sports, and then like the reviews were of guns and gear that I'd bought and I was using, and then the shooting videos and sort of topics were of shooting that I was doing. I'm not a big hunter. Again, I really want to go out and do my first deer stalk. I do like going out on the fields with pigeons, love going on a game day and all of that. I'm supportive of those areas of shooting. I enjoy those areas of shooting. It's just about opportunities to go and do it. If I have the opportunity to go and stalk a deer, I'll film it. I'll take the camera and show you guys. But yeah, I will certainly make sure to take up any of those opportunities if they come available, if you guys want to see more of that element. So we've spent a lot of time just general chatting. On to other points to discuss. In terms of, I'll just talk about, in terms of being together and supporting one another and all getting on, very relevant due to an event that I recently went to, actually this Sunday, which was at the Gun Trader HQ. Now, I know initially what most of you are gonna think. Hang on a minute, is that the same Gun Trader that ended up leaking God knows how many tens of thousands of its? I think it was potentially 110,000 user, users' personal data. The exact figure of how much data was put out there, I don't think was ever officially confirmed. Yes, it would be that Gun Trader. So it was actually at the British Shooting Show. So of course that whole leak was not a good thing for Gun Trader, and I sort of played my own small little part in it, because I believe I was the first to sort of break that news. It was going to get out there anyway, but I think being the first to sort of put it out there wasn't exactly the best. And of course I was incredibly critical of how that was all handled. I don't think it was handled publicly very well. I think it could have been handled a lot better. But Gun Trader is still about, and there's been, I think, some quite big changes. And unless they want me to, I won't name and shame. But I was approached by somebody who had recently at that time come on board, basically because of what was happening, because of the restructure of Gun Trader. And he approached me at the British Shooting Show, and was like, it became very apparent that he had a very, I think, fresh outlook and attitude to shooting sports, and actually wanted to take Gun Trader in a much more positive direction for shooting sports. So it's like, okay, this seems interesting. This actually seems really promising. He later came down to the office where we had the opportunity to speak in more detail. And basically the overarching thing was Gun Trader makes a fair bit of money. It's a very successful, profitable company. It's actually essential for a lot of businesses within the shooting sports industry, in terms of inventory management, in terms of booking in and out guns, in terms of advertising guns. There are other platforms, but the biggest is Gun Trader. It's what most people will go to start looking at, to start looking for new guns. And it was like, well, hang on a minute, we've got this really big company that's it's supplying a service to the industry, but we're receiving a lot of you know, a lot of profits for supplying that business. Got no issue with a business making profits, but maybe we should look at sort of giving back and ways to give back, and that's already started. And this day that we were invited to was absolutely brilliant. They made a very concerted effort to get as many different people from as many different areas of the shooting community as a whole, and get them all together. And I don't mean just random shooters. These were, you know, England team captains, heads of high up people in associations and organizations, influencers, and just, you know, loads of different aspects of shooting. And actually, I never understood how fractured even the clay community is. Like, how, like, never call a trap shooter a skeet shooter. Just don't, you know, or like Olympic trap and skeet. Like, anyway, but it was all about giving an opportunity for these people to talk and to be exposed to maybe areas of shooting sports that you don't normally get exposed to. The flip side is that it was a sort of a promo day. There was photography, so generating media for Gun Trader, this, that, and the other. But getting, you know, not just getting the usual look or the usual people from the usual organizations or sporting disciplines of shooting sports to be cover photos, to be, you know, banner photos and this, that, and the other, was a big tick. And the fact as well that they seem so keen to include practical shooting, big tick in my book. So yeah, I won't lie, I'm still, you know, I don't know. Connors and I were talking about it at quite length. Obviously, it was not a good thing what happened with the leak. Again, I think there's still a lot of people that aren't particularly happy about what happened and how it was handled. But I am more than willing to see where it goes from here, where changes are made, and what good that can potentially do to shooting sports. And selfishly, you know, I'm about promoting practical shooting and trying to get as much support and exposure for practical shooting as possible. And when you have a well-established sort of shooting entity that usually, you know, history would say, I'm not saying necessarily the history of Gun Trader, but history within our shooting community would say that the established parties, the established organizations, when new sports come out, when new disciplines come out, they just don't give them the time of day. So to see maybe a little bit of a shift, yeah, you know, it's I think it's promising. I think it's good. And again, this person who, again, I did see their name earlier in the chat, unless they want to be named, or they've gone to sleep, as probably many of you have. But yeah, I'm just very pleased to see somebody as passionate and as fresh-minded in that sort of position, and in a position to actually make a difference, because, you know, Gun Trader is very interconnected with a lot of people, and, you know, their contact book is big. So watch this space, and we will see where it goes. So there will be various photos out there of this day, and yeah, we'll see where it goes. And probably, if I have the opportunity, I'll probably go to more of these days, just because it was a right old laugh as well, regardless of who was hosting it, regardless of, you know, what happened with the host last year or the year before, I can't remember now. It was a bloody good day, and we got to play, what was it called? Dart tag. So Connors and I got to shoot at each other with bow and arrows, which was surprisingly needed. Yeah. Actually, like, talking about photos, this is, so I did post some stuff, I think, on the Instagram. So I think it was this one that was put up on the Instagram. Let me just have a little bit of a rejig here. you know, and at the end of the day, I won't lie, I'm a bit of a tart. Somebody wants to take my photo and I get some high quality photos. I'm not against that. And they also said that we can now technically, they did pay us for for the photos. So of course I can now say officially I am a professional shooting model. You know, stick at your goals, kid, they will come true. So this was so I think this is what I put out on the Instagram. I mean, it's not the necessarily the best setting for practical shooting, and if you hadn't guessed, we finally got some new shirts, some new Magload shirts, and let's get let's get rid of that. And I think one of my personal, there's two. Oh, let's get Connor's photo. What a strapping chap he is. Let's get that up. Oh, a little bit lower, maybe. There we go. I mean, that's definitely not 8221. That barrel is not parallel with the ground, so just, you know, he might want to raise that with the head of training for the UK PSO. More training needed. But my favourite photos of the day, and yes, these have already been memed. You're too late to the party when it comes to this. Where is the other one? There we go. I'm actually going to show some of the memes because they're actually pretty good. So that was a pretty good one from there. Apparently there's going to be, oh no, here we go, transition. Apparently there's going to be more. So it was great as well because these shirts only arrived like last week. So first outing with them, and then the next photo, yeah. I never thought he would ask for me to sit on his lap. It's not the first time, but yeah, it was a good day. And at the end of the day, we are part of the shooting industry as well as the community. Networking events, as it might be cliche, are important. And it was like the funnest networking event that I've been to in a long time. Let me find. Here we go. My personal favourite meme from these photos so far. Oh, let me get it in. It was calling out for some sort of movie poster meme, and personally, I think Paul nailed it. But anyway, less on that. So, little bit of an interjection on there. Now you're talking about mags. Any news? What mags? Don't know what you're talking about. So the latest with the mags, I think nothing has changed from last week. I don't think. Basically, oh yes, sorry. Talking about my rifle and making adjustments. So, as it turns out, we probably would have been able to release these mags a lot quicker. So the issue that I had during the match was the first time it was like a proper malfunction. But there was this, as it turns out, it was either getting worse and worse and worse to the point that it actually started introducing a malfunction. But apparently this problem was more highlighted on our mags, which is sort of an interesting learning fact as itself, because it's like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Like, is there further tweaking needed? But basically, with this issue with the rifle effectively getting worse and us using it to test the mags, a lot of the issues or the tweaks that we were doing to the mags because we thought they weren't 100%, actually was more down to the rifle than the mags. So, what's the Einstein quote? By measuring, you have affected the result. It's sort of like that. Like, just it's about calibration, isn't it? Like, if you're using a bit of test equipment, be that a gun or a ruler, make sure the gun or the ruler is correct. So basically, we're actually, like, as soon as we sort of tweaked this and went back to, well, hang on a minute, how did this affect the mag testing? What issues were we having with the mag tests, mag testing? Shit, actually, that can be attributed to this issue with the rifle, because this is the reason that we've been using the rifle that I'm using so much, that I'm using for competition. That's been the test rifle, because if the mags have any issues, it's always in my gun, right? Or the gun that I use for competition, right? And it's like, that starts to make a lot of sense. So the mags have been running, they've been running pretty much like 99.9% in the gun that Connors uses, in pretty much any 1522 you want to throw at it. But it's been like 95% in the gun that I use. Now, we want 100%, don't get me wrong, but in trying to figure out, well, trying to close that 5% when actually it's not the mag's fault, is affecting us in able to close down that 0.1% with everything else. So once Connor's figured this out, he was like, right, light bulb moment, made the tweaks to the ambi, took it back out, the issues were gone. So it was just about closing that 0.1%, and those changes have been sent to the injection molders. They're changing the molds as we speak. We could have the next batch as early as next week, might be the week after, and Connors has not said 100%, but he said this is the most confident that he's been, that the batch that we're about to get will be the batch. Not the full production batch, but it will be the final, everything is done. So incredibly close now. The finish line is now in sight. It was a huge source of stress and anguish for Connors and myself. More for Connors because he's the one doing the tweaks and designing the bloody things. But he was like, I don't know why is it working in mine? Why is it working in the Smith? Like, I'm trying everything. And it's like, he's making tweaks specifically around the ambi, which then introduces issues with the other guns. And it's like, wow, it's the same. But as it turned out, don't use a gun that has, an underlying issue to do your mag testing. Actually, better advice: don't design and sell magazines. Just don't do it. It's not a fun experience. So yes, we've made actually significant progress over the last week or two in realizing this and fixing this. That's now, the next iteration is off on its way. Obviously, we need to come and get that back and test it. But yeah, the other benefit is that if this is the batch and we have magazines that we're happy with, then we will actually have more test mags from this first batch. So we won't actually have to wait until the full production run to start shipping a few mags, because we know there's some people, there's one particular person that always watches the stream who was actually the first person to pre-order our mags. And it would just be good, those people that literally within the first 5 minutes of opening for pre-order jumped on it, we want to get it out to you guys as soon as possible. So yeah, anything that we can do to start getting these mags in people's hands, we are gonna do. Needed a larger rifle sample size. Yes and no. The sample size is pretty good, pretty big that we've got, and it's like in terms of the sample size. I mean, that's one of the issues as well, is that we're having to. These mags aren't just going to be used in one gun. It's going to be used in any better mag adapted gun. It's going to be used in 1522s, be used in Tippmans, it's going to be used in Chris Defiances, this, that, and the other. So having to test amongst all of these different guns is, it's challenging. but we have used, so it's 2 battle arms consistently that we test it in, and then we do have the opportunity for it to be tested in other battle arms as well, because we know Otto quite well, and we know a lot of people with a lot of battle arms. So yeah, I'm guessing, Happy, what you're getting at is a free sample. The issue is when we send stuff out for testing, it has to be tested in a specific way. That it's only at a very, very late stage in that we start sending it out outside of Maglo to say, look, tell us if this works or not. And that's literally what we want at that stage. Like, how long does it last? Just let us know of any got ya features in it. Andy Carlos, so there's light at the end of the barrel. Yes, there is. Definitely. I hope. Anyway, moving away from magazines. Quickly, what I spend most of my time at the moment talking to, and it's like I have no issue if somebody that has given us their money for a pre-order wants to phone or email or message about the state of the order. Like, fill your fucking boots. Why did I say that? But it's taking a lot of time at the moment. So yeah, I like to come home and demag, and I'm sure Connors does as well. So I'm gonna skip actually straight to the coats of irons. There's a couple of other bits in terms of I'll just go over them. I'll try and go over the other two briefly. The mental health leaflet. So mental health is obviously an important topic on its own. When you roll into the topic, firearms as well becomes maybe a little bit more, not necessarily just more important, but a lot more difficult in the conversation. And basically a number of the organisations, and I believe the Scottish police, have identified that there may be some myths or concerns around mental health and firearms ownership, and they've created this little leaflet. Now, I believe this is on the Basque website. Yep, so you can go on there and scroll down to get the download. Now, the biggest problem, so it goes through introduce. It's more common than you think, and it is more common. Like 1 in 4 of the population have mental health issues. Now, I don't think that necessarily will transpose onto the shooting community 1-for-1, because there's like by definition there's an exceedingly low rate of criminals in the shooting community, and there's going to be an exceedingly low rate of mental health issues. But mental health issues, they're indiscriminate in terms of their onset. It can occur for an abundance of reasons at any time. So it's raising awareness to that. Like, no one is immune from mental health issues. Nobody's immune from depression. Nobody is immune from any sort of health, or health complication or illness. So it's raising awareness about that. Be aware of yourself. It talks about then what they can do, and they use this as a bit of we are dispelling myths and this, that, and the other. Well, it doesn't. The biggest single worry when it comes to self-identifying as a certificate holder, self-identifying as a shooter with mental health issues, is as soon as I go to my GP and say I'm depressed, as soon as I end up on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medicine, they're going to take away my guns. That is always the concern, and it actually does prevent people from going and getting the help that they need. I don't necessarily see how this leaflet actually squashes those concerns. It basically talks about the different options. So it's like, it isn't always, and this is what I say, it's like, it is a how long's a piece of string question. It depends on so many different circumstances, and every situation is different, right? But they can come, so these are a few of the outcomes that aren't just take the guns, take the certificates. Come to an agreement where the guns are stored remotely, suggests that the certificate holder surrenders their certificate and then reapplies when their health has improved, which is basically a revocation. Return the guns to the certificate holder if appropriate to do so. Revoke the certificate if only appropriate to do so, considering what they have learned. And again, it sort of goes through here. We understand they're essential to working life, essential to your well-being in terms of your hobby. We won't necessarily take away your guns, but it is an option. Like, I don't know how that necessarily will reassure somebody that they should go and seek help because their guns might not be taken away. But the overarching message is get help if you need it. At the end of the day, there are more important things in life. I know I'm going to blaspheme. There are more important things in life than shooting and firearms ownership. If you or somebody you know is having mental health problems, and you think yourself or somebody you know is a potential danger to themselves or the public, then they should be seeking help. Not having your guns is a lot better than not having a friend, or friends not having you. So it does talk the most important thing is going and getting help. So there's a number of phone numbers, websites, people that you can, organizations you can get in contact with, and also shooting communities. I think it is more of the shooting communities going, look, we are aware of this. You can turn to your shooting community. If you're a member of BASC, you can turn to them and they will help you. And perhaps that's maybe an option that people didn't think was available, that instead of making the first step in going to your doctor, make the first step in going to your representing body or your representative. The thing is, it still could trigger the same thing, the same worry in terms of losing your guns, because if you go to BASC and go, hey, I'm member blah 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 blah, I'm in a bad place, I'm not feeling too good, sort of want to go to the doctor, but worried about the potential consequences with losing my guns. Well, BASC then has an obligation to, not necessarily, report is a heavy word, but maybe flag it. They've got an obligation if you go to them. So it's not like you can go to BASC in confidence. If they have concerns about you, then that will be raised with the police, that will be raised with your GP, regardless. But maybe going to someone like BASC First or the Countryside Alliance or the NGO or whatever, they will help get the framework in place for maybe the quickest or easiest route back into shooting and back into firearms ownership if the worst does happen in that situation. What the worst being in terms of losing your guns, not the actual worst that could happen in those situations. So yeah, I think I think it's good that it's being addressed to sort of this level, that it is being talked about, that they're being upfront about it. Does it actually change anything? I don't think so. People are still going to be worried about going and seeking help, but you got to think bigger picture. Again, having friends still here, having yourself still here is better than having guns and you not being there, rather than you being here and not having guns. So just an interesting that it always comes up in conversation when people first apply and whether they've had issues in the past, and it always comes up in the conversation about, well, we are a self-policing society. When if you have concerns about somebody, when should you? Maybe that's something I haven't read it word for words yet, but I wonder if they touch on that in terms of like maybe a little bit more guidance of like, at what point do you think you should step in if you are concerned about somebody else? And that, again, that does happen fairly regularly. Next on the agenda, unfortunately, it's not a nice sort of firearms licensing story. They really aren't nice at the moment. NI Police declares firearms and explosives branch critical incident, and then it says a critical incident is defined as any incident where the effectiveness of the police response is likely to have a significant impact on the confidence of the victim, their family, or the community. So basically, firearms licensing has got into such a shit state in Northern Ireland that they've had to call a critical incident because it's now putting public safety at risk. And this is what we were talking about ages ago about firearms licensing potentially collapsing. What would trigger that? What would that look like? How that could happen, and what that would mean for the public and also certificate holders. And the sort of catalyst for a firearms licensing department collapsing in on itself is not being able to keep up with renewals. So the whole reason we have certificates is for public safety. It's to make sure that somebody is suitable to own firearms and doesn't pose a danger to themselves or the public. And when it expires, it's decided now that it needs to be renewed every 5 years. So if you go past that 5 years, then by definition, the public is at risk if that person hasn't been checked. And that's sort of what's happening now. They've got 3,000 applications in backlog, which are going. These aren't just going to be first-time applications. These are going to be, renewals in there as well. Well, if it gets to the point, there was I think it was Devon and Cornwall, that said they expect an initial application to take 2.5 years. That's because they're prioritizing the grant. But if the renewal, but if the first time applications are taking 2.5 years, how long are the renewals taking? It's going to be quicker, you would hope, but it's still going to be a very long time. At what point do we start seeing the likes of firearms licensing departments in the UK calling for a critical incident? At the point that the police are no longer able to regularly check people or check their certificates and renewals within the time, within the guidance that is issued to them, and shit starts happening because of that, that's when shit's just gonna go. This shit's going to hit the fan, isn't it? At the end of the day, they can't press the pause button on it. People own firearms, right? Guns are already being owned. People already have certificates. They can't just close their eyes, stick their finger in the ear and pretend it's not happening. They have an obligation, they have a job to make sure that those people remain fit, that they follow up flags, they follow up any potential issues that are raised, and continue the assessing people through the renewals every 5 years. If they're not able to do that, then the public safety is going to be at risk. So basically, calling a critical incident, they are calling in reinforcements. Effectively, they're going to bring in. It's probably going to be money. They're probably going to bring in more staff. They're going to maybe upgrade a few systems here and there. And hopefully that will help then clear the backlog. What I hope, and this is what should in an ideal world happen, is they don't just clear the backlog until it's not critical anymore. They go, right, we've got all these extra resources in place now, let's just burn through the backlog, get everything back down to zero, and start afresh. But that might be a little too logical for firearms licensing. And then tomorrow we are heading off to the Coats of Iron Shotgun Championship. It's actually one of my favourite videos that I ended up doing from last year. Great match overall and great stages. And I thought just spend a little time going through the stages because there's some and I'm like, yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be challenging. So here's a little bit of an overview of North Coast butts. By the way, in terms of a range, brilliant facility. They do everything from like full bore rifle, clay pigeon shooting, practical shooting, and all practical shooting disciplines. Like you know, they do mini rifle, they do practical shotgun. You shoot slug down there. Like, just so much going on. And it's the North Coast Butts Rifle Club. So these are the different areas. So this was the dreaded stage 1 and stage 2 slug stages from last year. And then you can see it's quite a big place. So that's where all of the different stages are going to be. There's buckshot, birdshot, and slug. And these are you're not going to have time to like... you're not going to have time to memorize all of these. But this shows you the level of detail that you have to go into running these matches. You know, the amount of like paperwork that they do in between. So this is a buckshot stage. This is going to be an interesting one. It's going to be tempting, I think, to blat it, as in just go for it. But buckshot is known as luck shot. So you probably want to take a little bit more time and make sure you don't get those no-shoots, because you could get the fastest time on this. You get a no-shoot, it will screw it. This is also buckshot, and interesting. I don't think I've shot at anything other than paper with buckshot yet. So obviously you've got different barriers or barricades, so you're going to have to be doing a lot of movement. Fairly simple, but actually, you know, you're going to have to get your footwork right on this one. Metal plates and some frangible clays on that. Again, buckshot ammunition. This is the slug stage, and they've gone for a big one with it. So IPSC papers run down. The loading, your loading here is going to be incredibly critical. Where you load, how quickly and efficiently you load, is going to make the difference on that stage. But yeah, like a run and gun slug, again, that's that. Like last time, the slug was a little bit like gallery, not a huge amount of there was movement side to side, but like this was a full run and gun birdshot stage last time. Yeah, so that looks a good one. This is an interesting one. Option 3 start, gun on the tire, run down, pick up the gun, load it, and engage. That's going to be, well, I think the majority of the time is going to be the loading and the running. So people that are quick off their feet. These are all now birdshot stages, by the way. So this looks like an adaptation on that one. Again, you're going to have to be quick depending on how big. Like this looks like a long run, might be quite short in person. This looks absolutely incredible. So this green bit, for those of you who don't know, is your shooting area. So starting there, you've got an activator, which I think drops a shield here, so you can see those. So you're gonna have to end up going forward to activate it, or it depends on the points. It might be. I'm sure they wouldn't. I'm sure they won't make it this way, but it might actually be beneficial not to to leave those targets. But I can't see that happening. So yeah, you're gonna have to go around, obviously shoot all of those, activate it, come back and shoot them. But yeah, a circular shooting area. It's like I don't think I've ever encountered one of those before. Fairly standard stage, I think overall. Again, I think those are barriers, so you're gonna have to come to one side, shoot the middle, go to the other side. But interesting that it's 10 with IPSC. It's 9 rounds in the gun for standard manual. So for us standard shooters, you're gonna have to load at some point in there, maybe shot saver it, it depends how you want to play it. I wonder, actually, I might want to check this with Connors. I might have a really cunning idea. But anyway, we'll see how I go. I'm not giving any information. What's that? Sat on the... I stood upright. Does something. Engage target has become visible. Two poppers hit when they fall. was that a barricade? You have to go down. So shoot the popper, the screen falls. Short stage, but that could be fairly tricky. This one, pretty standard. I think there's probably going to be a bit of leaning if that's a barrier in front of you. Lean to one side, lean to the other, but should be a pretty quick stage. This is just going to be like the walkthrough is going to be a clusterfuck. Like everyone's going to be wanting to peer through each one of the windows. It's going to be down to we were talking about it today. There's probably going to be the safe way to shoot it and the risky way to shoot it, depending on how close you want to get to the no shoots. But yeah, it's going to be a way of finding the best apertures to get all the targets and not forgetting any. I think these are like the mammoth wingers that Coats of Irons were famous for a few years ago. If so, looking forward to it, because I've not shot those and loads of people still talk about those today. And the final stage, loading is going to be very important here. Where you load, how quickly you load, because you're going to have to come back. And again, the numbers aren't particularly kind. So the way that it's laid out. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of movement, fair amount of loading, and I think that is it for the stages. So that's where we're going to be this weekend, traveling up there tomorrow evening. I can't remember if we're shooting Saturday or shooting Sunday, but one of the days we're going to be shooting, one of the days we're going to be one of the days, well, Connor's is going to be our rowing, I'm going to be filming. And yeah, should be a good weekend, should be a good match. Hopefully the weather is cooler, but not wet. Always good if it's dry. What do you do with slug stages with a section 2? Do you use the RFD servant to get out of jail free card? Well, it's not a get out of jail free card. We're actually having this discussion with who was it the other day? Like an RFD. So there's nothing actually in the law that we could find that specifically says that RFDs can shoot anywhere they like, but it's down to the conditions on your FAC or your certificate. So if you pull out your FAC, you lucky bastards, it will have conditions on there which will say something like, you can own these guns while you're a member of this club, you can use these guns for these purposes, and you can only use these guns at ranges with adequate insurance and this, that and the other. There's no such conditions on an RFD. So by definition, the RFD allows you to shoot the guns under the RFD, and by definition, because there's no conditions put on the RFD about where you can shoot and under what pretenses, as long as it's purposes of the RFD, that gives you the ability to shoot anywhere you like. So it's not a get out of jail free card, it's just the law. RFDs and servants, as long as it's for purposes of the business or purposes of the RFD, they can shoot the guns wherever they want in whatever situation they deem fit for purposes of the RFD. And it's like the like shotgun, right? So we used to have a range where we used to be based. Now we don't have a range. Connors and I don't shoot shotgun in between matches, right? It's like the only shooting of shotguns we do is during matches. It's the only opportunity we have to do it. So therefore, if we want to test or develop anything, or we want to produce marketing material or exposure for the brand, that's all done at competitions. So, I think the RFD has something like, it has testing, R&D and marketing on it. Well, a servant shooting a section 1 in a competition to create marketing material, because again, we're creating marketing material for a worldwide sport where they don't have section 2 guns, promoting magload with a 2+1 doesn't transfer very well internationally, right? So a section 1, creating video in a sanctioned match is marketing for the RFD, is marketing for the business. And also, if you don't have the opportunity to test the gun in between matches, well, you need to test the gun. And there's some things that you need to use. You need to use the Section 1 to be able to test. And also, we need to test guns in a competitive environment. There's many things that, well, like, this could just be coincidence, or it proves this point very well. But the battle arms, right? Flawlessly runs flawlessly in training, flawlessly in testing down in a confined range. Take it into a competitive environment, and an issue presents itself. Now, is that just luck, or was it the competitive environment inducing those issues? And interestingly, I was getting the click more when I was shooting at the side. So there were these, I think I talked about this last week, and I don't know whether it's the motion, maybe it caused a bit more friction, this, that, and the other. But again, you shoot guns differently in a comp than you tend to in training. You shoot them quicker, you're maybe less forgiving with the gun because you're under the clock. So therefore, testing it in competition is perfectly reasonable because it's harsher environment. They do, like in F1, they do race simulations. Well, it's a bit hard for us to do a competition simulation. We just go to a comp. So it's not get out of jail free card. An RFD servant can shoot. Now, as far as we believe, unless it has competing under the purpose of the RFD, using a servancy or an RFD specifically to compete, that I think is a little bit more grey. But at the end of the day, one of the taglines for Magload is competition proven. It has been for a number of years because we prove our kit in competition. So how can we do that without using the guns in competition? Anyway, Daniel, he answered 3 things you should know. Probably won't read answer anything else. Who's that? Have you decided on the Utah trip? Not right now. I want to go 100%. I just need to double check the dates. There's a lot of stuff going on. Actually, when is? Let me check the. No, I'm not going to do it now. But basically, if I can go, I will go. So we will see, and I'll make a decision on that soon, because I guess David probably needs to know, and I probably need to get booking. But there's a lot. It's been very, very busy this year so far. I'm planning to be out in Florida, I think in September, for the Pan America Handgun Championships, the level 4. So we'll have time in America. We also want to go out and see our new American dealer and maybe go and do a 3-gun match with him. So it's just whether or not we can fit all of that in. Maybe we can do it all as one. Don't know. We will see what works. Happy. So in short, you'll be running a Section 1 rather than Section 2 for coats. Where the opportunities present to shoot Section 1 in competition, then I'll be shooting it. We've had a lengthy discussion with solicitors and the police around this specific issue, and what I'm saying was confirmed. As long as it is purposes for the RFD, it's not an issue. So if there are purposes for the RFD that mean that I need to shoot a Section 1, then I will shoot a Section 1. It's we're not doing anything untoward. Like if something needs doing, it's going to get done as long as it's lawful and sensible. Anyway, on that note, that should be a takeaway for everyone watching. Have fun shooting. Just make sure it's lawful. It's lawful and safe. There we go. And then no one gets hurt. But yeah, on that note, I am going to head off for a stream that I almost didn't do. Did a fairly long one tonight. But I hope you enjoy it. See, this is always the thing. It's like going to the gym, isn't it? You're like, no. I'm not genuinely like this doing the stream. I do get excited about it, but every now and then it's like, I just want to sleep. And then you get into it, and I'm just like, oh, I can't believe I thought about missing it. But yeah, it's been a good one. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I am. Is it next week? Let me just check. I have a very rare holiday coming up soon. No, it's not next week. It's the week after. I'll see if I can get a pink pass to do the stream on holiday. I'm not promising, but next week I am free. So we will be doing our usual live stream 8 p.m. UK time on the channel next Thursday. I'm not going to promise there's going to be new videos and content this week, but I am trying. To get. I've got the Trigicon review. I've told you what's going on, and I've got like 5 videos that I want to sit down and film that are a little bit talking head ranty. I know you guys really like those. Did you just call me? I'll call the police. I will call the police, Daniel, using those hurty words against me. But yes, I will try my absolute best to get some more content out as soon as possible. But failing that, it will be the live stream next Thursday. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend and week ahead. If you're shooting, have fun, be safe, be responsible, and obviously enjoy yourself. If you're competing, good luck. If you're going to be at the Coats of Irons, then I will see you there. And again, all the best and good luck for that. But again, thank you for joining. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Before you all leave, don't forget, if you haven't already, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed for future videos. And of course, as always, guys,